The Quidditch Match Curse. Harry's very first Quidditch game was supposed to be an exciting milestone, a chance for the youngest seeker in a century to prove himself on the broom. But it almost became the end of his seeking career, and even his life. Up in the stands, something was wrong. Harry's broom suddenly bucked violently, shaking as if it were trying to throw him off. To the untrained eye, it looked like some kind of malfunction or just bad luck. But in truth, Professor Quirrell had locked eyes on Harry and was quietly performing a curse. His goal? To kill Harry and make it look like an accident. Now here's where Snape comes in. Everyone saw him muttering under his breath and glaring straight at Harry. Naturally, Hermione, Ron, and the rest of us watching the scene for the first time assumed Snape was the one hexing the broom. In reality, he was doing the exact opposite. Snape had recognized Quirrell's dark magic and was performing a counter-curse to keep Harry safe. The real brilliance here is in the subtlety. If Snape had openly confronted Quirrell in front of the crowd, he would have exposed himself as someone who suspected the dark arts at Hogwarts. That could have tipped Quirrell, and by extension Voldemort, off about his true loyalties. Instead, Snape took the risk of looking guilty, all to keep Harry alive. Without Snape's counter-curse, Harry probably wouldn't have survived his very first Quidditch match, and ironically, Harry walked away more suspicious of Snape than ever, which shows just how well Snape played his double role. The dueling club incident. Fast forward to Harry's second year, tensions were high. Students were being mysteriously petrified by the monster from the Chamber of Secrets, and the entire school was on edge. To help students defend themselves, Professor Lockhart, in all his showboating glory, set up a dueling club. The club quickly turned chaotic. When Harry faced Draco Malfoy, Draco conjured a snake. Now, a snake on its own might not sound terrifying, but in a room full of panicked kids, it was a dangerous situation. Worse, the snake slithered straight toward Justin Finch-Fletchley, ready to strike. Most people froze, including Lockhart, who was supposed to be running the show. But not Snape. With just a flick of his wand and his trademark calm, he banished the snake instantly before it could hurt anyone. Now here's the subtle point. Snape didn't just save Justin, he also saved Harry. Think about it. Harry, trying to stop the snake, instinctively spoke Parseltongue, the language of snakes. The whole room went silent, realizing Harry could talk to snakes, a skill linked directly to Voldemort. That moment sparked rumors that Harry was the heir of Slytherin. If Snape hadn't intervened, if the snake had actually attacked Justin, things would have spiraled far worse for Harry. Not only would Harry have been blamed for controlling the snake, but he might have been accused of outright endangering another student. Snape's quiet, calculated intervention prevented the incident from turning into a full-blown scandal. The werewolf attack. By the time we get to Prisoner of Azkaban, the truth about Sirius Black was still murky. Everyone believed he was a murderer who betrayed James and Lily Potter. So when Harry, Ron and Hermione ended up in the Shrieking Shack with Sirius and Remus Lupin, things got complicated fast. The kids learned the shocking truth. Sirius wasn't the villain he was painted to be, and Peter Pettigrew was the real traitor. But then came the danger no one was prepared for. The full moon rose, and Lupin transformed into a werewolf. Here's the key moment. Snape had been knocked unconscious earlier during the confrontation, but when he came to and saw the werewolf threatening Harry, Ron and Hermione, his instincts took over. Without hesitation, Snape threw himself in front of the children, shielding them from Lupin's deadly attack. This wasn't careful planning or part of some grand strategy. It was pure gut-level reaction. Snape didn't stop to think about whether he liked Harry or whether protecting him would expose anything. He just moved. And that's telling. Because deep down, despite his bitterness, Snape wasn't going to let a werewolf rip apart Lily Potter's son. In that moment, we saw the raw humanity of Snape. For all his coldness and cruelty in the classroom, when it truly mattered, he put himself between danger and Harry without a second thought. Preventing Sirius's capture. By Harry's fourth year, things were heating up. Voldemort was stirring. The Triwizard Tournament was underway, and Harry was constantly caught in danger he never signed up for. In the middle of all this, Sirius Black, still branded a fugitive by the Ministry, risked everything to return and watch over Harry in secret. Snape and Sirius had a long history of hating each other, going back to their school days. If there was ever a moment for Snape to expose Sirius, This was it. Snape could have turned him in, and it would have instantly earned him credit with both the Ministry and with Voldemort's followers. But he didn't. Instead, Snape let Sirius slip under the radar. He never went to Fudge, he never reported anything to the Ministry, and that decision mattered more than Harry ever realised. At that point, Sirius was Harry's one real father figure, the only connection to James Potter he had left. If Snape had betrayed Sirius, Harry would have been robbed of that bond years earlier. It wasn't a dramatic life-on-the-line rescue like some of the others, but it was still crucial. By holding his tongue, Snape gave Harry precious time with Sirius, however short-lived it ended up being. And for someone like Harry, who grew up with no family love, that act was a lifeline. Occlumency lesson. This one is tricky, because on the surface it looks like Snape was being cruel, and in many ways he was. But underneath the harshness, he was doing something vital. When Voldemort returned, one of the biggest dangers wasn't just physical attacks, it was mental. Voldemort had a psychic link to Harry, one that went both ways. He could slip into Harry's thoughts, plant visions, and even manipulate him into acting recklessly. To defend against this, Dumbledore ordered Snape to teach Harry Occlumency, the art of closing his mind to outside intrusion. The lessons were brutal. Snape pushed Harry hard, sometimes cruelly, mocking him, berating him, and forcing him to face the most painful memories of his past. Harry resented him for it, and eventually the lessons fell apart. But here's the thing. For all of Snape's bitterness, his goal was still to shield Harry's mind from Voldemort. Even the limited training Harry got made a difference. It delayed Voldemort's influence, prevented Harry from being fully possessed too soon, and bought precious time. Without Snape's involvement, Harry might have become nothing more than a puppet of Voldemort. Saving Harry from Umbridge. Later that same year, Harry found himself in one of the most desperate situations of his entire time at Hogwarts. He was locked in a room with Dolores Umbridge. After months of tormenting Harry, suppressing the truth about Voldemort's return, and abusing her power as High Inquisitor, Umbridge finally snapped. She caught Harry and Hermione trying to get word out to Dumbledore and decided to interrogate them by any means necessary, even torture. When Harry tried to warn Snape, using the cryptic message, "Padfoot's in the place where it's hidden," Umbridge dismissed it as nonsense. But Snape understood perfectly. Here's where the brilliance of Snape shows. He didn't react outwardly. He didn't blow his cover by showing alarm. Instead, he played the part of the loyal professor, brushed it off in front of Umbridge, and quietly left. But the moment he was out of sight, Snape acted. He sent word to the Order of the Phoenix, alerting them to Harry's danger. That single subtle move set off a chain reaction. The Order mobilized. Sirius left Grimmauld Place to help, and although that night at the Ministry ended in tragedy with Sirius's death, the truth is that without Snape's quick decision, Harry might never have made it back at all. It's one of those hidden rescues. Harry never gave Snape credit for it, and at the time he probably didn't even realize Snape had done anything at all. But behind the scenes, Snape once again kept Harry from walking straight into Voldemort's trap alone. Keeping Harry alive during the Astronomy Tower. The night atop the Astronomy Tower is one of the most controversial and emotional in the entire series. To Harry, hidden under his invisibility cloak and frozen by Dumbledore's spell, it looked like the ultimate betrayal. Snape killed Albus Dumbledore in cold blood. But what Harry didn't know was that this moment wasn't betrayal at all. It was the fulfillment of a promise. Earlier, Dumbledore had confided in Snape that his time was limited. The curse from the Gaunt Ring was slowly killing him, and he only had months to live. He asked Snape to do something unthinkable. When the time came, Snape would be the one to end his life. Not only would this spare Draco Malfoy from becoming a murderer, but it would also solidify Voldemort's trust in Snape, keeping him embedded as a double agent. So when Draco hesitated on that tower and the Death Eaters closed in, Snape stepped forward. Harry's heart broke watching it happen. But the truth was, Snape's action wasn't to betray Dumbledore or Harry. It was to protect them. By keeping Voldemort's confidence, Snape ensured he could continue shielding Harry and working against the Dark Lord from within. Harry saw a murder, but in reality it was one of the most selfless moments of Snape's life, because he condemned himself to eternal hatred in order to keep Harry alive. The flight of the 7 Potters. The night Harry left Privet Drive for the final time was supposed to be a well-coordinated escape. Members of the Order of the Phoenix used Polyjuice Potion to create 6 decoys, hoping to confuse the Death Eaters. But things went wrong fast. Voldemort's forces were waiting, and a brutal sky battle erupted. Snape was there too, but on the side of the Death Eaters, or at least that's how it looked. His job as a double agent meant he had to play along, casting curses and appearing loyal to Voldemort. But underneath the act, he was still trying to protect Harry. One spell in particular is infamous, Sectum Sempra. Snape cast it during the flight, but not at Harry. He aimed it at a Death Eater who was closing in. The spell missed slightly and struck George Weasley, slicing off his ear. It was a tragedy, yes, but the original intent was to keep the real Harry alive without blowing his cover. This moment highlights the razor-thin line Snape had to walk. One wrong move and Voldemort would know he wasn't loyal. One hesitation and Harry would have been dead. So Snape fought with precision, appearing ruthless, always making sure his actions didn't directly endanger Harry. It's a messy, chaotic moment, but behind the chaos, Snape's silent protection was still at work. Passing the sword of Gryffindor. After weeks of hiding in the wilderness, Harry and Hermione were at their breaking point. Ron had left, supplies were running low, and worst of all, they had no way of destroying Horcruxes. The locket Horcrux around Harry's neck was poisoning their minds with despair, and the mission felt impossible. Enter Snape, though in a way Harry never expected. He couldn't just walk into their camp and hand over the sword of Gryffindor. That would have exposed him instantly. So Snape chose a different path. He used his Patronus, the silver doe, the embodiment of his love for Lily, to guide Harry. One cold night, Harry followed the glowing figure through the forest to a frozen lake. Beneath the ice lay the sword of Gryffindor, the only weapon capable of destroying Horcruxes. Snape had placed it there for Harry to find, trusting that the Patronus would lead him to it. What's powerful about this moment is that Harry didn't even know it was Snape. To him, the silver doe was a mystery, something beautiful but unexplained. Only later would he learn that this was Snape's greatest symbol of devotion, not to Harry himself, but to Lily Potter. By giving Harry the sword, Snape handed him the key to victory, ensuring that the mission to defeat Voldemort could go on. It was an act of love, hidden in secrecy, one Harry would never understand until the very end. Leaving memories for Harry. The Battle of Hogwarts was chaos. Spells flying, giants storming through the castle, students and teachers fighting for their lives. It was the final stand. And in the middle of it all, Snape's double life finally caught up to him. Voldemort, now fully convinced that Snape was the true master of the Elder Wand, turned on him. In one of the most brutal moments in the series, Voldemort ordered Nagini to strike, and Snape was fatally wounded. But here's what makes this scene unforgettable. His final thoughts weren't of himself or even of Voldemort's betrayal. They were of Harry. As Harry rushed forward, Snape locked eyes with him and forced out a final request. Take it. Take it. What Harry didn't realize at the moment was that Snape wasn't just giving him random fragments of memory. He was handing over the truth. Those memories changed everything. Inside, Harry saw the story Snape had hidden for years. The boy who grew up bullied and bitter. The teenager hopelessly in love with Lily Evans, and the man who lost everything when she was murdered. He saw how Snape made an unbreakable vow to protect Lily's son, not because of Harry himself, but because of the woman he had loved more than anything. The memories also revealed the critical piece of the puzzle. Harry was the final Horcrux. He had to die in order for Voldemort to be destroyed. Without Snape's sacrifice, without those memories, Harry would never have known what he needed to do. And here's the part that hits hardest. Snape knew the world would always see him as cruel, spiteful, and maybe even villainous. He never tried to clear his name. He never asked for recognition. He chose instead to carry that burden in silence, to let Harry and everyone else hate him, all while protecting him from the shadows. Snape's final act wasn't about saving Harry in the physical sense. It was about saving him with the truth. It was about giving him the knowledge and the strength to walk into the Forbidden Forest, face Voldemort, and lay down his life. Without that moment, the war would have been lost.